Welcome. I'm your host, James Howard, and I'm so honored and excited to be coming with you today and to talk with a woman whose career has expanded, and she's doing some of the work that is very, very important for the people of Gwinnett County. You know, she was a former prosecutor for the Gwinnett District Attorney's Office, and now currently she's a Gwinnett Superior Court judge. I have the honor of talking today with Judge Tracie Cason. Judge, thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
You know, as someone that works with people, tell us when you were elected to the Supreme Court and how much it has meant to you being a judge for Gwinnett County.
Sure. So I was elected in 2018. I ran for an open seat. One of the judges retired, and I ran for Superior Court. So you just gave me a promotion.
Okay.
But I have served this county for the last 21 years, first as a prosecutor, as you mentioned, and then decided to expand that community service to run for judge because I wanted to increase the number of people that I could protect. And so the fact that this county and the majority of the citizens in that 2018 election gave me that job and had confidence in me to do that job is really overwhelming. Yeah. It's because it's what I've committed my career to doing, and the fact that they trusted me to continue to do that was just fantastic. I love what I do. I love serving.
You know, people don't understand how difficult it is, the job that you do, and how you do it and what it entails. Mm-hmm. Talk to people who just look on the outside and say, oh, they're here for this or they're there for that. How difficult it is to make sure that you're doing the right things for the people of Gwinnett County.
Right. So Superior Court, we're the highest trial court of general jurisdiction in Georgia. So we can handle every kind of case there is. We have exclusive jurisdiction over felony criminal cases, custody, divorce, paternity cases, and then property cases and equitable cases. So you can imagine probably our two hardest categories are felony criminal cases and then custody cases. Coming from a criminal background, I felt a lot more comfortable in that. And obviously, the reason those individuals are in court is because of a decision they've made, whether it was just a stupid decision or a really bad, evil decision. But they're there because of something that they've done. So that's a little bit of an easier category because you're trying to fashion a sentence that fits what their crime was, whether it was that stupid decision or that really evil decision. The harder cases are those custody cases where we're dealing with children who haven't done anything, but their parents unfortunately can no longer get along, and we're having to divide up that family and figure out their new normal. Those are the cases that are really hard because the decision I make in that, that one day with that limited information may well shape those kids and who they become as an adult. Yeah. And trying to make sure we're doing the right thing for that family, that their new normal is going to be the best for everyone involved. Those are tough. Yeah. Those are really tough.
And I'm glad you said that because people don't understand that the decision you make as a judge can affect people for a lifetime.
Right. Absolutely.
Not just a couple of weeks or a month, but for a lifetime.
Absolutely.
Whether they're good or whether they're bad. As a judge, do you feel, I know you have to separate the law and separate sometimes what you're doing, but how has it been on you? How difficult is it for you? Because you're making certain decisions. Does it affect you at all?
Of course it does. It can't not. We're human. All the judges that serve, we're human. We're trying to do the very best we can. So it absolutely affects us. But I feel that I was placed in this position. Early on, I wanted to be a prosecutor and protect folks. And I feel like God led me in that right direction, and he gave me those tools to do that job. And then I really hadn't planned to be a judge until a few years ago. And I think, again, it was placed on my heart to expand that community service. And I've been fortunate that I truly feel that if I'm where I'm supposed to be, I'm going to be given the tools I need to do my job.
That's great.
And so I am very fortunate in that I am able to kind of compartmentalize. This is my job. This is what I have to do. if I go to work every day and I do the very best I can do with the information that I have, then that's all I can do.
Yeah.
And if I've done that, then I can sleep at night knowing.
Good.
Now, are there times when it's so close that I struggle? Could it have gone that way? Should I have gone the other way? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, I have to feel confident and make a decision with the information that was given to me.
Yeah. And it's ironic, your bio talks about that you want the citizens to know that when they come in front of you, that they will always be heard. And I think that's very important because people sometimes don't think that they're heard. And everyone, no matter who they are, needs to be seen and they need to be heard.
Absolutely.
Talk to us about what you've been able to accomplish in your first term.
So because of my working with the DA's office, my caseload kind of got skewed heavy towards civil and domestic, which was interesting because it was completely out of my wheelhouse. But the number of cases that I got transferred in that category more than doubled what the next judge's caseload was.
Wow.
So I started with over 1,500 civil and domestic cases, and then also started a small criminal docket that grew quickly. But in that first year, between January of 2019 and then February of 2020, right before the pandemic hit, we were able to cut that backlog from over 1,500 to about 750.
Wow.
And you can imagine the cases that I got were not those easy cases.
Yeah.
They were cases that had been around a long time. And, those were civil and domestic cases, people that were waiting to have their divorces heard, people that were waiting to have their custody cases decided, people that had businesses that had been sued or were suing because they were owed money. These were cases that were just sitting and not going anywhere. And so we were able to just be aggressive about getting those cases resolved, because justice, whether it's civil or criminal, justice delayed is justice denied, and you've got to get those cases moving forward.
Yeah. And that was going to be my next question. What's the difference between a case that happened maybe 6 months compared to a case that's been sitting for 2-3 years?
Well, of course, you lose witnesses. People, even if you don't lose witnesses' memories fade. Generally delay on a civil case is always good for the defendant.
Right.
But in a criminal case, that's never good for the defendant, because you have individuals that, certainly if they're being held without bond, their liberty is being restrained and they haven't had their day in court yet. Okay. And there may be a good reason. Obviously, there are legal reasons why individuals are held without bond. We've got to ultimately protect not only the rights of the defendant and the accused, but the victims and the protection of our community. But those cases, through the pandemic, we weren't able to get those to a jury trial. Wow. And they're just sitting there. So we've got to make sure we are moving those cases that have priority. Good.
Well, thank you for doing that, because a lot of people probably don't know, when you have all those cases coming and you have things coming from every angle, to handle it in a timely fashion, is kudos to you.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's kudos to my staff.
Yeah.
I had a fantastic staff, and that is key to a good judge as well, is that you've got to have a good staff that knows how to calendar cases, that keeps up on the reports, that doesn't let those cases sit there. And I kept the judge's staff who I replaced, and so we didn't miss a beat. There was no transition in that. They knew exactly what to do. So I just got to come in and learn how to be a judge and didn't have to learn how to manage the office.
Wow.
And that was the key to making sure we could get that done.
And I know they're happy for that. Yeah. To have a good staff is always key, because it takes a team.
It absolutely does.
It takes a team. You talked a little bit about the pandemic. How did that affect the courts, especially in Gwinnett, the largest county? How did that affect the courts?
So on March 13th, our Chief Justice, or our Chief Superior Court Judge, issued an emergency judicial order. And then the very next day, the Supreme Court of Georgia issued a judicial emergency, which halted all court processes except those that were essential. So bond hearings, anything that dealt with someone's liberty, certainly emergency custody issues we could still hear. And originally it was just for 2 weeks. We all thought, I think the whole country thought, the world thought, if we can just close down for 2 weeks, then this is going to blow over and we'll get back to normal.
Yeah.
Well, obviously it did not. And so we kept having judicial emergencies extended. And Gwinnett was very fortunate. Obviously, we never closed down completely. Let me just say that. Gwinnett was very fortunate that we never closed down completely, except for 3 days for some deep cleaning. But even during those 3 days, we actually had an alternate courtroom or courthouse building that people could still file things.
Okay.
And then for those first 2 weeks, we only did those essential matters. We tried to do it by video so that we weren't bringing folks in. But some of those things, even during that time period, you just couldn't do by video.
Yeah.
You don't get the same sense. But Gwinnett, obviously once we realized it was going to be longer than 2 weeks, we shifted. We created a joint calendar, all of our Superior Court judges, and tried to just group all of those essential cases so that we could address those quickly. So individuals that were having bond hearings, individuals that might be in jail, but but their recommended sentence if they entered a plea was going to be probation, so they would get out. So we tried to address all of those as quickly as we could by video. Yeah. And then we really never stopped. We never closed down. I think I can't say the same about some of our fellow Metro colleagues, but Gwinnett, the citizens of Gwinnett need to understand that we have a good bench. We have the DA's office and solicitor's office, of course, had to be key in that as well. And while we were all trying to coordinate, everyone was doing everything we could to make sure that justice was still moving forward.
Gotcha.
It was a little bit more slow because of the pandemic, but we still tried to move forward the entire time. So
as a judge, or just as things that you do because you've been doing this so long, I wanted to talk a little bit about, going to go back a little bit.
Okay. 2017,
you worked on Operation Spring Cleaning. And I read a little bit about that, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that because I think, I could be wrong, but tell me if I am, I think that had a positive effect on you to where it was like you were really proud of what you accomplished.
Absolutely. So Operation Spring Cleaning was a huge collaborative effort between the DA's office, the GBI, the Sheriff's Department here, Gwinnett County Police, and about 15 other law enforcement agencies. And the target was to get those that were trying to purchase underage individuals for sex. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, Gwinnett County is a huge hub for sex trafficking. And people don't want to believe that. They want to think it's downtown Atlanta, and certainly it's there too. But this was an operation in Swanee, Georgia, one of the best cities in the country to live in. And it took months of planning. And the DA's office and our role was to have a prosecutor in that house each night so that we can make sure that those cases were legally sound, that the arrests that were made were going to be able to stand up in court. And we coordinated it so that 2 days after that operation ended, every individual that was arrested was indicted within 2 days, so that we could show that we mean business of stopping that in Gwinnett County, and to send a strong message to those that might think about trying to do that in Gwinnett. You don't need to come here because you're going to be met with strong resistance. And just to see the cooperation of all of those different agencies was phenomenal. It was really phenomenal.
Because that's quite big today. And people don't, when you really look at the totality of it, if you're able to really put a dent in Gwinnett County, that's a ripple effect in every county. There's like, we're not going to do that, or we're not going to,
Absolutely.
And it works hand in hand.
Absolutely.
So I looked at that and I was like, yeah, I know you felt real good about that. Yeah. And that's good because for you as a judge, I want to commend you for the work that you do, all the judges, for the work that they do. It's not easy. Right. You get a lot of criticism that's unnecessary, but you're following the law and you're trying to do what is best for the people at that. So I want to thank you for your work and your effort that you do every day.
Well, I mean, that's why, things like this, getting information out to the public is so important. If the if the community doesn't know us, then how do we expect them to trust us?
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
need to understand that we are community servants. We don't just sit up in this ivory tower courtroom and don't understand what's going on in our community. We live in this community, and that's why it's so important to the judges to be able to protect this community. But like you said, people need to feel like they're heard, and they need to know who's listening to them. And again, they may not like our decision, but if they trust it, then they'll respect it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what's key and crucial about getting information out about our judicial system.
Yeah.
Because most people don't
They
have
don't
a
know.
clue. Mm-mm.
And then when they see you, they're like, okay,
Right.
and there's a big misperception and everything is sitting there and they're like, okay, I'm going here and, oh, this judge is going to do this. I know how it's going to be. And it's not that unless you know the person, unless you're able to talk to them. And I'm
Right.
so glad that you're here to do this today because people do need to see that, listen, I do everything that I need to do the way that the law is, and I'm trying to do what I'm called to do.
Right.
It's different when you're called to do something than just,
Exactly.
just want to do it,
Exactly. Exactly.
Tell us what the most important quality you think a judge needs to have.
Well, I think it is that you have to be that skilled listener. Like I said, it's just so important to me that everyone that comes in my courtroom feels that they were heard. I don't do pretrials with the attorneys on cases, back in chambers, because no matter how well-intentioned those attorneys are in trying to relate the conversation we had in chambers, something's going to get missed.
Mm-hmm.
And if a party doesn't like the outcome that was somehow agreed upon, they're going to feel like they were robbed and they weren't heard. And so to the extent that I have time, I let people say whatever it is they want to say. Sometimes it may not be relevant, but I can go through that and I can pick out what I need that's legally relevant, but they feel like they were heard. And one of the things I'm most proud of was actually during my first year, I had a custody case, a gentleman that was trying to get primary custody of his 15-year-old son. And the son had actually filed what's called an election saying he wanted to live with his father. But ultimately, it's my job to determine what's in the best interest of that child. And so we had the child come in, because he was a young man, he was 15. He testified as to what the issues were. I heard from the mother and the father. And ultimately, I decided it was not going to be in his best interest for dad to have primary custody. But he needed more time with dad. So we restructured the parenting plan to accomplish that. And I brought the young man back in. I explained why I was making the decision I was. And I asked if anybody had any questions. And the father said, you know what? I didn't get what I came here to get, but you heard me and I respect your decision.
Yeah.
And that's just so important, I think, is for judges to listen and to explain. Yeah. Because if you don't know a process, then how can you trust it? Yeah. And I think that's a big kind of component of why our general public sometimes doesn't trust some of the judicial decisions that come out because they don't understand it. They don't understand maybe why some cases shoot to the top and go really fast and they think it's rushed, but there may be a legal reasoning behind that. They don't understand why some cases take so long. But again, there may be a legal reasoning behind that. And if we can just be transparent in what we're doing, then we'll get that respect and trust back in the judiciary. And that's key for community safety.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad you talked about that with the qualities that a judge needs to have, because people do not understand our judicial system. And then when things happen and you get before a judge, you're already nervous. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things that's going through your mind, and you're only worried about maybe one thing. If I did something wrong, am I going to jail? Am I not going to jail? How much time am I going to get? And you do not understand the process at all.
Right.
And, I'm so honored that you would say, hey, I try to explain so people will understand. When people understand, they're more apt to say, I get what you're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
I really appreciate that. Everything that's going on, we're not going to say totally coming out, but we're maybe on the backside of this pandemic. What do you think the courts need most right now from the people working in the courts and the citizens,
Right.
because they're a big part of what goes on.
Absolutely. You know, we're not partisan. Judges are not policymakers. We're decision makers, and you need someone that's experienced in doing that.
Say that again.
Experienced in
Thank
doing
you.
that. Yes.
Thank you.
And you need like that staff, like the staff that I kept. They were experienced, so they helped me move those cases more quickly because I didn't have to bring in a staff that had no idea what was going on. They knew what they were doing. I just got to then concentrate on my job of making the decisions. And you need experienced judges that know how to move these cases through the system, that know how to make decisions and aren't going to keep a case under advisement, for 3 months while they're trying to figure out what to do, because they've had experience with those types of cases. They know what they're looking for. They know how to get rulings out. You don't need someone, you need consistency on a bench. Certainly there may have been times in Gwinnett where we've had judges that weren't doing their job or were doing it wrong. And certainly when you have those situations, you need a change because you need good judges that are doing their job. But when you have good judges that are doing their job and that are doing it well, you want that consistency. You want that experience on your bench because that's going to keep our community safe. It's going to make sure that justice is not delayed, that those cases are getting addressed and they're moving efficiently. And that is the biggest thing that any court system, whether it's Gwinnett or anything, needs in coming out of this pandemic. Because despite us continuing to work the whole time, there's still a huge backlog because of it.
Yeah.
And we've got to get that down.
How many people roughly are in the county of Gwinnett?
We have almost 1 million, right at 1 million in Gwinnett County.
And that's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. And there's a lot of things happening, doing things.
Yeah.
So before you were elected, talk to us just briefly. I know we talked a little bit. What were you doing? You were a prosecutor.
I was.
Yeah. Okay.
So I was a career prosecutor. I'd been a prosecutor for 21 years. I started out in Dublin, Georgia, which is where I grew up.
Okay.
And I was a prosecutor there for 3 years. And then Gwinnett had been known as having the best DA's office in the state and had such a great legal community. So in October of 2000, I moved up to Gwinnett and worked in the Gwinnett District Attorney's office. And honestly, even though I'd been a prosecutor for 3 years, I was still what everybody calls a baby ADA.
Okay.
And so I really kind of grew up in that prosecutor's office, grew up as an individual because I was, fairly young when I moved up here, but also grew up as a lawyer. I learned how to deal with people. I learned how to prosecute cases. And what a lot of people don't understand is that prosecutors don't just prosecute.
Right.
We dismiss cases. We look at the case and we're like, there's not enough evidence there. Or there may be enough evidence, but unfortunately, someone's rights were violated. Law enforcement didn't get a proper search warrant. Not that there was any ill will, but people make mistakes. So even though this person may well be truly guilty, if that case was made in violation of their constitutional rights, then our office would dismiss those cases. And we were seeking justice for everyone involved and protecting the rights of everyone, not just the victims, but we were also protecting the rights of the defendants as well, or those accused of crimes. And a lot of people miss that and think that prosecutors are just, trying to put everybody in prison. But that's not what prosecutors do. And that's what I learned in that office, is that you have to look at everything. And it really helped me in what I do as a judge, is looking at everything, because we have an adversarial system. So there's going to be a difference of opinion. That's why you have to have the judge. Yeah. And so it really taught me how to look at those cases and make sure I was doing the right thing. But it is a different view, I can tell you, from the bench as it is as a prosecutor.
So you're learn to have better mediation skills.
Yes, yes. When they say, attorneys are counselors at law, it's true. I mean, sometimes you do have to be a counselor.
Yeah.
And just really try to talk people through what their issues are. And that's particularly when you have cases where people are representing themselves.
Yeah.
Is that you really are more, I can't give them advice.
Right.
But when we're trying to work out their divorce, I really do feel like I'm more of a counselor, and we're like trying to work out, okay, now this is what y'all agree on, but this is what y'all don't agree on. Now tell me why it is that you want A and you want B, and let me see if we can somehow agree on C.
Yeah. So coming up, you have the nonpartisan elections, which is May 24th.
That's correct, May 24th.
You want people to get out and vote?
That's right. People need to understand that judges are elected. We are elected community servants. So the community has a say in who their judges are. But because we're nonpartisan, we're on that May ballot. Cannot wait till November to vote for your judges.
Wow. And a lot of people don't know that. They think that your judges are appointed.
Right.
Certain judges may be appointed.
Correct.
But not the type of judge that you are.
Right.
May 24th, the nonpartisan elections. Please get out and vote. Your vote is very important. That's your voice.
Absolutely.
That's your voice. You need to go on ahead and get out and vote. We have about a minute or so left. I want you to tell the people the one thing you want them to know about you.
Okay. The main thing is I am a servant of the people in this community. I have dedicated my entire professional career to protecting this community. I am passionate about protecting this community, and I want to continue to protect this community. And that's in every aspect: criminal, civil, family, business areas, property interest. The courts are there to protect the citizens. And I love what I do. I love getting up every single day and coming to work knowing that I am serving the people of this community. And that's what I'm absolutely passionate about.
You know, I hear it when I talk to you, how passionate you are about what you do. Mm-hmm. And sometimes people fail to realize that you have a life outside of it, but that's part of your life.
It is.
As what you've done. You've done it for over 20-something years, so that's part of your life. I want to thank you for joining us today. And
thank you for having me.
I hope that people understand more about your position, what it takes to be a judge, what it takes to be a prosecutor or a defense attorney, or what it is in our courts and our judicial system. I'm James Howard. This is Judge Tracie Cason, and I'm so honored to have the opportunity to talk with her. Don't forget, May 24th, the nonpartisan elections. Please get out and vote so your voice will be heard. Thank you.